Rock 108, Iowa's Pure Rock. Hey, it's Ned hanging out here in studio, and you know me on air as quite the gamer. I love playing video games. It's seemingly all I talk about on air when I'm not talking about rock music. And, I've interviewed a couple big people in my day, and I absolutely love it when I'm able to bring that all together and connect with someone on the phone that has been a huge part of my life for I don't even know how long at this point. And that man, Tommy Tallarico, and he is the creator and co-founder of Video Games Live, which is stopping here in Iowa at Cedar Rapids at the Paramount Theater on February 4th. Tommy, man, how's it hanging?
Wow, that's a lot of pressure you just put on me there.
I just making you feel cozy, right?
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. Thanks for the kind words.
Yeah, definitely, man. Now, Video Games Live going to be hitting Paramount Theater, Cedar Rapids, February 4th with Orchestra Iowa. How have the shows been going so far?
Oh, amazing. I mean, I've literally been on the road with Video Games Live for 12 years now. So, but we've never, ever played Iowa. This is the first time we're coming there. And, of course, the Orchestra Iowa, the state orchestra, the best musicians the state has to offer. And it's going to be huge. It's going to be great. I can't wait.
I can't wait for it. And actually, the first time I saw it, I was going to a concert that we were holding there at the Paramount Theater. It was Ghost. They were in town. Yep. And as I was walking up to it, I saw Video Games Live, and I looked at my boss, and I said, we gotta go, man. And then from that point forward, it all just kind of worked itself out. So now we're pretty excited for the show on February 4th. We're giving out tickets all last week, this week, doing video game trivia on Rock 108.
Ah, very cool.
So, that's what we do. Now, obviously, the most recent album of Video Games Live, Level 5, was released just this past August, right? Mm-hmm. And once again, huge variety of different tunes from all types of genres in gaming. What is kind of the choosing process into what's going to be like on the next album, or what songs are performed live at Video Games Live?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. For the live shows, what I like to do is incorporate social media. So if you go on our Facebook page, the Video Games Live Facebook page, we create events pages for every one of our shows, and I go in there, and it's actually me. I don't have a staff of people. It's just me.
Sure, definitely.
And I go in there and I ask people for every city, state, country we go to. I'll say, hey, we're playing with Orchestra Iowa. What songs do you want to hear? And so, like video games are interactive, I also like to make the show interactive.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times the set list is made up of what people who come to our Facebook page for that show want to hear. And, of course, I put in, some stuff in case they miss it. You always want to play Mario and Zelda and Final Fantasy and Halo and Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
You always want to get those in there. But, for folks who request stuff like, Shadow of the Colossus and Skyrim and, Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, certain things that, are specific to what they want, we put those in the show. And it's funny, too, talk about the interactive thing. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when you go to a concert, especially symphony concerts, as I'm sure you know, everyone's like, okay, put your cell phones away, put your ringers off, no pictures, no cameras. We're the exact opposite. I get on stage, and the first thing I say is, okay, everybody, take out all your phones.
Do a Snapchat, everyone. We got to see this live.
Exactly. So, and another thing, too, is that, with orchestra shows, a lot of times everyone's like, shh, be quiet, everybody be quiet, you can't say anything. Again, I come out on stage and I go, okay, look, I know we have a very prestigious and talented symphony on stage, but if there's anything that you see or hear that you love, feel free to cheer, clap, holler, scream out whenever you feel like. Because my whole idea behind creating Video Games Live is I wanted to prove to the world how culturally significant and artistic video games have become.
Yeah.
And that's just from, being a video game composer and being in the industry for over 25 years.
Right.
But I also wanted to help usher in a whole new generation of young people to appreciate the arts and to appreciate the symphony. So Video Games Live is all the greatest video game music of all time, played by a full symphony and choir. But what makes it really special and unique is that everything's completely synchronized with massive video screens, rock and roll lighting, and a stage show production, and interactive elements with the crowd. So I kind of like to describe it as having all the power and emotion of a symphony orchestra,
right?
But combined with the energy and excitement of a rock concert, mixed together with all the cutting-edge visuals and technology and interactivity and fun that video games provide. So we have these kind of two worlds colliding, crashing together, and I don't want teenagers and higher to have to sit there and be quiet for the symphony. They want to cheer out and scream, and that's what we're used to. That's what everyone our age group, we grew up on rock and roll and some of us MTV and video games and computers and interactive things. So I'm just bringing that whole stuff of what we grew up on and combining it with the tradition of an orchestra, so it gets a little crazy.
Yeah, and that, I don't know how else better you could describe it there. I think you just outlined it beyond anything. And that's a huge general misconception about symphonies nowadays, that you're going to go to the symphony in a nice black tie and whatever affair. Right. But then you go to one of these video game symphonies that there's a few of them out there, but Video Games Live is one of the best examples of just something that you're not going to expect when you're like, oh, symphony. Bleh. No, this thing is like a massive rock show and lights and craziness. And heck, if you just look up some of the footage on YouTube, there's a good example right there.
Yeah, we have over 200,000 videos on YouTube because, again, what I do is I tell the audience, I encourage them, hey, pull out your cell phones, record it. You have to do one favor for me, though. Make sure you put it on YouTube and social media and share it with your friends, because I want people to see it, because it is, if you've never seen the show, it's kind of hard to describe it.
It is.
And by the way, I created the show 15 years ago, and when I first put it together, there was nothing like this anywhere that existed with video screens and anything like that. And so people thought I was crazy. I mean, imagine me 15 years ago going to the L.A. Philharmonic saying, oh, this is going to be great, and, there's going to be lights and video screens and lasers, and they're like, look, people who play video games don't come to the symphony, and people who go to the symphony don't play video games, so no one's going to show up to your stupid thing. And that was the game publishers telling me that.
Yeah.
But I put it all on the line. I took a big risk, and the very first show I did, because I wanted it to be something that was spectacular and amazing and something that people would talk about all over the world.
Sure.
So the first show I did was at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, man.
With 250 musicians on stage with the L.A. Philharmonic. And again, they're like, you're lucky if you sell 500 tickets. You're going to lose millions of dollars. Well, long story short, 11,000 people showed up for the first show.
Boom.
And we've been doing it ever since. And like you had mentioned, now, not only, you always know you're successful when, there's 5 other video game knockoff symphony shows now out there. So,
right, yeah.
so I know it must be good if everybody else trying to jump in and ride the coattails. So,
yep, exactly.
Pretty cool.
And it's really unique too to see that this kind of show is coming around, and and symphonies, like you said, not a lot of people went to them and whatnot, but seeing something as interactive and getting those young people to check this out, it's like the perfect mixture of bringing people out to check out arts and get people inspired.
And fun as well, and like I say, get the audiences going, because, the movie industry, kind of watched what Video Games Live did, and you'll notice now over the last 4 or 5 years, there's a whole bunch of, whether it's Harry Potter or Star Wars or Raiders of the Lost Ark or E.T., now everybody's kind of doing this, hey, let's bring pop culture to the orchestra, which I think is fantastic. But even in those shows, you're still just watching a movie with a live orchestra. It's fantastic, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But we really wanted to bring this rock and roll, this raw rock and roll element to it all. I get up there with my guitar, and rock out some of the bigger tunes like Halo and Street Fighter and Final Fantasy, things like that.
Heck yeah.
So we really do take it to a next level. It's not just a Symphony, where everybody's sitting there being quiet.
Right.
It really is. We wanted to take it to the next level. And I'll tell you the greatest part, though, is that you don't have to know anything at all about video games
Right.
to come to the show and really get a sense of what it's all about and really enjoy it. In fact, the best letters that we get are from non-gamers. They're from, like, the parents who brought their kids, or the grandparent who brought the grandson to the symphony for the first time, or whatever. They're the people who are most shocked, because guys like me and you, we know the music to Final Fantasy and Halo and Zelda is great.
Exactly.
We already know that.
Yeah.
But for somebody who has no inkling and who goes there and expects like a bunch of bleeps and bloops, or, you know, they think the orchestra's going to go in bloop, 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 bloop all night long.
Yeah.
When they hear and feel this music and hear the emotion and that sense of like getting thousands of like-minded people in a room together.
Yeah.
Because think about it. As huge as video games are, when there's not a lot of moments where all of the gamers kind of come together on a social and in-person level.
Yeah.
We all play games online, but we're not in the same room together, right?
Exactly, especially today. Especially
today with social media and Facebook. So to bring all of these passionate gamers together in one room, and to have something like the Orchestra Iowa, who is like they're prestigious. I mean, these folks are the finest musicians around, and they're playing Beethoven and Mozart and Bach and Stravinsky, and to have them now playing Warcraft and Pokemon, and when playing stuff like that, what it does is it makes those audiences feel special. Like, wow, look, our passion is being legitimized by our own orchestra, and there's just this kind of sense of celebration that happens throughout the whole show. Really super cool.
It's super cool, and I love it, and I cannot wait until February 4th, man. Now, just to kind of get refreshed last night before I was talking to you, I popped in Cool Spot and Earthworm Jim, and I was listening to some of the tunes, and I'm just like, this stuff was so cool. And, musically, obviously, video games have changed in so much in the years. What's the music landscape in the video game world from maybe like, the mid-'90s to when you were kind of doing stuff to now? What would you say?
Yeah, so I got involved in the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
And back then, you're working on game systems like the 8-bit original NES,
right,
the Game Boy, and then the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo came along. And what all those kind of had in common is that everything had to be done within the sound chip that was sitting on that cartridge, because they were all cartridge-based games. So that means you couldn't really have live instruments. You couldn't have this, a lot of stuff.
No, definitely not.
You couldn't record anything. Now, I did a bunch of tricks on certain those games you mentioned, for example, Cool Spot, Disney's Aladdin, Earthworm Jim, where I would record like guitar hits or voices, and I would play them within the music. So no one was really doing that back then. They were just using that sample channel as like, fight, begin, go, stuff like that.
Right.
I was actually using it within the music of the game. But where it all kind of changed is in the mid-'90s. When CD-ROMs became available as a storage medium, both through CD-ROM on the PC or the Sega CD system, and then later, of course, the PlayStation 1 and the Xbox, the Sega Saturn. When all of these things started to happen, now I could actually record real music. I didn't have to worry about MIDI files and sampling small samples, storing everything on a cartridge. I could actually record live musicians and real musicians.
Yeah.
And but even though the technology was there, the budgets still weren't there, because, games were, you could make games for like $200,000. Well, I got news for you. It takes about $200,000 to record a full orchestra.
Oh, well, yeah.
and so it wasn't until late in the 90s where games like you had your Halos and your Metal Gear Solids and Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy, then you started to see the game companies starting to, get into the 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes $10 million budgets, and then, okay, we'll put a couple $100,000 towards recording of the music.
Right.
So really, it wasn't until the end of the 20th century where you saw, the explode really high quality music.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell the difference. I mean, and what you're saying too is like, the companies weren't like music was kind of like that afterthought in a way.
Yeah.
And then nowadays it's like now you can get the soundtracks, you can get this, it's available and ready to go. It's become so different over the years.
I'll tell you a couple interesting stats. The average video game soundtrack album right now outsells the average movie score soundtrack 3 to 1.
Holy
3
crap.
to 1, so by 3 times,
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, though, to think about as well is that back in the 80s and in the early 90s when we had those cartridges, melody meant everything because you didn't have the big high production quality values. So some of the greatest video game music, and I'll talk about Metroid, Mario, Zelda, Tetris, Castlevania, Mega Man.
All classics.
All of those great things were all amazing melody lines because that's all you had. So it better be good or else it was going to be annoying.
Yeah.
And so when you're restricted by the technology, that sometimes gets you to dig deeper to go, okay, we got a 45-second loop here, and we have a 4-voice, we only have 4 voices that we can do at once, or 4 instrument sounds that we can do at once. So, things like Sonic the Hedgehog were created. The music to that was created.
Right.
Very simplistic, yet catchy stuff. So sometimes with the newer music, sometimes composers get so wrapped up into the technology and into the recording and the mixing and the mastering and the this and the that and the budgets that you sometimes forget, wait a second, it still all comes down to melody. So even though the technology and the budgets and everything has changed, when I write music for a video game even today, I still go back to those 25, 30 years ago where it's like, okay, at the end of the day, though, I still got a melody, and it has to be great. And why do people 250, 300 years later still love Beethoven? Because it's that melody.
Yep. It's that hook in your brain, man. You'll always remember where it came from.
Exactly, and that's why I think that 100 years from now, people will still be humming the Mario music.
Oh, yeah.
Like it'll still be relevant, and it's that melody. It doesn't matter where it came from or when it came from.
Sure.
Melody is everything.
That is definitely true, my friend. Now, it's pretty well known, too, that you were the cousin of Aerosmith's Steven Tyler.
That's true. His real name is Stephen Tallarico.
Yep, his last name is Stephen Tallarico. Do you have any stories from childhood or even today, or maybe have you ever considered working with him at some kind of capacity?
Oh, yeah. We talk about it all the time. And, in fact, if you recall, when Guitar Hero was like a huge thing.
Man, it was
Guitar
massive.
Hero first came out.
Yeah.
And if you look at Guitar Hero 1 and Guitar Hero 2, you'll see my name in the credits.
Okay.
But one of the things that I wanted to do is I showed the game to Steven and Joe Perry.
Sure.
Backstage at a show. I said, "You guys got to see this," and they were in love with it because Aerosmith's always done cool technology stuff. They're always trying to get their music to younger audiences and stuff. And they're always kind of on the cutting edge of that.
Yeah.
And so they saw this and they go, "Oh my gosh, it's incredible!" So the very first band version of Guitar Hero was Guitar Hero Aerosmith.
That it was, yeah.
That was the first one, so now you know why. And then after that, there was Van Halen, and there was Metallica, and a Green Day one, and then then they got the Beatles involved with the other one. So that was kind of cool. But
yeah.
Steven Tyler, I'll tell you a quick Steven Tyler story, and I think it'll really give everyone out there listening an idea of who Steven really was. I was so happy when he did American Idol because you got, I knew his big heart and his personality would shine through. But I've been to, I don't know, 100 Aerosmith shows
Sure.
my entire life from when I was a kid. And usually what happens is before the show, they have people who've won radio contests.
Of course.
Fan club. They have a meet and greet.
I know all about it.
You walk in, and there's probably 50, 60 people in a room, right?
Right.
And I've seen him do this 100 times. He walks in the room, and all of us A-type personality people, they go rushing up to him right away. They surround him in a sea of,
Well,
fandom.
of course. Yeah.
And they're saying, "Oh, Steven, I'm your greatest fan, blah, blah, blah. Can we get pictures out of?" And Steven very, very politely goes, "Yes, absolutely. I'm going to take care of everybody. It's going to be great. We're going to hang out. Give me a couple minutes, though, everyone." "Oh, okay." And he looks around the room, and he sees there's always like 4 or 5 of the super shy people who are like terrified, right?
Right, yeah.
Like out on the outskirts in the corners of the room, and those are the people he goes up to and he goes, "Hi, I'm Steven Tyler. What's your name?"
That's
so
cool.
That's who Steven Tyler. Like, here's a guy who's been doing it 50 years.
Yeah, man.
And he still wakes up every single day loving and appreciating the fact that he's a rock star.
Oh, man, yeah. And I mean, you would know. I mean, heck, too.
but you see some of these bands, though, "Oh, I don't want to be a rock star.
Yeah.
I just want to be left alone. I'm a tortured artist." He's the exact opposite of that. He's just like, he goes out of his way, and he understands it.
Right, yeah.
He's part of who he is, and he understands that just by shaking somebody's hand or taking a picture with somebody, going out of his way to do that, lights people up, and he appreciates that. He appreciates being a rock star.
And it really gives people that memory too. Like, they'll remember that. I mean, even heck, you do right now. I mean, just those memories that they'll last for forever, and they'll be able to tell those stories forever too.
Yeah. He's such a great guy, talented, and by the way, you look at a lot of some of my favorite bands, Led Zeppelins and these guys, the Who.
Oh yeah.
And we don't see those guys touring too much.
No, very rare, very rare.
And his voice, Steven Tyler's voice, is still just as good as it was 50 years ago. It gets better.
I know, and I'm like, dude, you're getting up there in the age, and that's usually. And one of my favorite bands, Kiss, Paul Stanley, his voice, and I've seen him a few times, is starting to get up there himself, and they've really tuned down a lot of the guitars. But Steven Tyler sounds just like on the record.
It's unbelievable.
I know, man.
All the guys and the drums and everybody, and again, keep in mind, he's 68 years old. He still moves around, and he hasn't missed a beat.
Nope, exactly. I wish to be as agile as him at that age.
Imagine, right?
I know.
Unbelievable.
That's what I'm hoping to be.
He shows no signs of slowing. It's incredible.
It's amazing, man. Now, I've got a couple more questions for you. One of them is going to be a real quick one here. Sure. What do you think of Nintendo's next console, the Switch?
The Switch?
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I got to tell you. Now, can I be honest, or should I lie to you?
Go for it. Okay. All the honesty.
Well, I'm gonna put this in a couple parts.
All right.
First of all, I want to say that I love Nintendo.
Okay.
Mario, Zelda, that was part of not really my childhood because I was in the 70s and 80s, but it was part of the culture, the video game culture that I love and adore so much.
Of course, yeah.
So I hold Nintendo to a higher standard.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the great pleasure and honor of working with Shigeru Miyamoto, who's the creator of Mario and Zelda and Metroid. I worked with him on Metroid Prime 1 and 2.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And so I hold these guys to a huge standard. The Wii and the Wii U, I feel, in my opinion, and people don't have to agree with it. I totally get it. But I hated them. I hated them both. Did not like those two consoles. And so when I see the Nintendo Switch, I say to myself, hey, that's definitely better than the last two, especially the last failure. Wii U was a failure, let's say.
It did bomb, yeah. I would say in comparison to the other big ones, it was definitely the lower selling one.
So it excites me that they're doing something that's different and portable and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is that with phones, with mobile phones, and everything that's happening, and look, I love gameplay's, always the most important things. Controls, gameplay is always the most important.
Yep.
But I gotta say, I'm a bit of a graphics whore, if I may say that.
Hey, I think we all are in a way. Sometimes we don't want to admit it, but we do. We love seeing something that looks awesome.
And when I put on, when I'm trying on all this new virtual reality stuff, the headset stuff, it's a perfect example where there are certain games where it's so realistic and you're in the VR and it's mind-blowing. Mm-hmm. And then there's other games where you put it on, it looks like a PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
And it registers in your mind, oh, this sucks.
Right.
So when I look at the Nintendo Switch, by the time it comes out, where are the graphics for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One going to be? Is it going to be leaps and bounds ahead of it? Because, each generation, each year that passes, game developers figure out tricks in the system to make it run quicker and better and stronger and look better.
Yeah.
You look at the first generation PlayStation 2 games, and then 5 years later, when it was at the end of its cycle, and you look and you compare the two.
Oh man, it's night and day.
It's night and day.
Yeah,
right?
It is super night and day.
So as amazing as all the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One stuff are right now, where's that going to be in a year or 2 years from now? It's just going to get even better.
Yeah.
So are people going? And look at your cell phones now. The games and the graphics on these things as the processes get quicker and quicker.
Yep.
So my fear is, I'm hoping it does well. Of course, I want it to do great. And they're doing the right thing by, they have, let's put a new Zelda game out there.
Yep.
They need something to drive the sales. Which
their big system seller, yeah.
We never had the must-get title.
Oh, and not until late. Even later, and on top of that too, the marketing of it too just was no one really understood what it was when it first came out.
Exactly, and let's be really honest now. You probably, and this is what scares me a little bit, is that when you looked at the Nintendo Switch, that first trailer that came out. Sure. And I'm looking at this thing, kind of shaking my head, going, ugh. Only because, there was that one scene where they had 5 or 6 girls, in their late 20s, all dressed up to go out on the town.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, oh, let's play Nintendo Switch instead. And it's no.
No, I don't think that's happening.
That's not happening.
No, and it's I looked at some of those that commercial and I saw them all partying on their big deck upstairs. I'm like, they have $38,000 in student loans. They aren't doing this, man. Come on.
So I kind of looked at that and go, not the way I would have marketed it, but whatever.
Right.
But, hey, look, a lot of people are excited about it. I think obviously Nintendo has a huge, passionate following, and I think they're going to love it. I'm referring more to overall, globally. PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, they are the true leaders.
Oh yeah.
And now that Nintendo, their portable sales, their DS sales, or 3DS and all that stuff is going away because of phones.
Yeah.
This is going to be a way where they can still kind of, be different, and I hope it works out for them. It certainly, like I said, it certainly looks better than the last two, especially the last one.
Yeah, it's a step up. That's for sure.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for them.
I think we all are. I think we're all hopeful. We want Nintendo to win because they've been around for so long.
We want them to succeed. Although, how cool would it be to see Link and Zelda on the PlayStation 4 or Xbox One?
That'd be just like when Sonic went over with Mario. It's the same kind of thing in a way.
Right? So,
yeah.
If Nintendo fails in this platform, the next round of platform things, maybe they just do what Sega did and they become Disney will buy them.
Well, yeah, of course.
Somebody like Disney will come in, buy them, and they'll put them on all the platforms. Boy, I'd like to see a gritty Zelda Zelda game on the PS4, wouldn't you?
That'd be so rad. I mean, I thought I got that pretty decent with Twilight Princess, but it's still, I'm like, come on, a little bit more here. Come on, let's do that.
Yeah.
Well, now I just felt like I was on an episode of Judgment Day there for a second. Well, aside from Video Games Live, are there any projects that you're currently working on that you'd like fans to know about?
Yeah, I am. In fact, in the rock world, I was hired to be the creative director of a new Led Zeppelin rock show.
Whoa! All right.
With an orchestra, and it's called Rockmania Live. And what they're doing is, over the next 10 years, is they're taking all the classic rock bands. Led Zeppelin's but then we're going to do Queen, and then The Who, and then AC/DC, and who am I missing? Pink Floyd.
Oh, there you go. See, I was hoping, I'm like, is he going to say Pink Floyd? I don't know.
And so if you can imagine, like, a rock show, but it's not like a tribute band.
Right.
A lot of great, I've seen so many great, like Led Zeppelin tribute bands, or Queen has this amazing tribute band. Pink Floyd has a ton of them.
Oh, yeah.
They kind of dressed up and they sound and they sing like, like the guys. Well, what Rockmania Live is it's it takes all the content and it takes all those things, but presents it in a different way, but still with the rock drums and the bass and the guitar and the vocals and things, but just presented in a completely different visual, updated 21st century visual way. So that's very exciting. I'm also I also got the rights to the Rocky movies, and so
really,
so I'm going to be doing a big the music to Rocky.
Oh, that's
show.
Cool.
So
I'm a huge Rocky fan, so that's music to my ears, man.
I think everybody at our age is like a huge Rocky, right? We grew up, and I'm an East Coast I'm an Italian from the East Coast,
yeah.
So and I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so that was right in my wheelhouse.
Oh, well, yeah, man.
I went after it, and so going to be working on that as well.
That's so cool. So we got a rock show, we got a Rocky show, and of course Video Games Live. So you're staying pretty busy, aren't you?
Absolutely, love it. Riding the wave while I can.
Well, kick ass, man. Well, don't forget, guys, Video Games Live going to be at the Paramount Theater in Cedar Rapids, February 4th. Tickets are still on sale, and you can find out all the details at rock108.com. Tommy, man, absolute pleasure to talk to you. You're probably one of my favorite interviews out there. It's so cool to connect on not only the rock world, but my video game world, too.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
And I really wish Judgment Day was still on.
I know. Well, maybe me and you will get up on when you come backstage. We'll get our cell phones out and we'll do a little review. Put it online.
Hell yeah, dude! I'll be there.
Awesome, man.
Cool, man. Well, thanks again, dude, and I will see you at the show.
Sounds good.
All right, have a good one, man.
Okay.
Yeah, see ya.